Welcome to the Authentic Human Podcast, Mike. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
So tell us tell us about your passion and what you're doing in the world because you're doing some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, it really kind of came from left field. I'm a business owner up here in Washington and, have a pretty successful business and a family. And so chasing aliens and artifacts in the ground was the last thing I would have ever guessed that I would be doing. And however, I've collected rocks and minerals my whole entire life. Since I was like 3 years old, I'd carry around a little box that said Michael's Rock Box. And my grandpa, he was a miner, so there was always specimens laying around and, it just kind of fit. And but the passion stayed with me, and so I started collecting carvings and stuff like that in my 20s, and mostly just new stuff from Vietnam or but I like the prime specimens. I always collected specific crystals, sapphires and things of that nature. And so one day my friend came back from the Tucson Gem Show, and he had a few of these carvings with him, and he said he bought them from an archaeologist down there. And sure, you did. That's all I'm thinking in my head because they have aliens and language and all kinds of things on there. And I was like, really, no, who's doing this? I asked him. I said, these are really good. And he's like, no, man, seriously. The guy had carbon 14 dating. It was 10,000 years old, and I believe that I believe him. And I'm just like, I don't know, man. This would be all over the news if they found something like that. Even just one piece comes out of the ground looking like this, should be red sirens everywhere. Like this is a big deal. And so I went rounds with him, and inevitably I bet him $5,000 that I could prove it to be a modern hoax. I really, at that time, thought that would be pretty easy to do. I got on the phone with, Linda Moulton Howe and different people on TV thinking, what a perfect thing to debunk on your show. If it's fake, obviously they're ripping off a bunch of tourists telling them it's this old. I kind of had a chip on my shoulder at that point, especially trying to confuse people with, spiritual type things. And because there was Egyptian and Sumerian stuff that started coming up on these things. And that was a real, just, I couldn't fathom how that would tie into Mexico because this is all coming out of Mexico, mind you. And
Okay.
so I started kind of digging in. I bought a few pieces from the people that were on eBay and that sort of thing, and just started kind of looking at these, trying to dig deeper, find out who was making them, where they were coming from, if I could get more of them, would they make them custom, for me with the right amount of money. Like I offered serious amounts of money, tried to trip these guys up, anything I could do to get my $5,000. And at that time it was a small thing, and I had a few cool carvings to show for it at this point. And so that cool carving thing kind of continued as I began to research more, and things started coming out of the ground that, as I'll show you here in a few, it's really stuff that just it belongs in a museum. It doesn't belong in this room, and that's the real truth. At this point, knowing how many man hours went into something, even if it was modern art, like these are museum pieces. Like the amount of effort and intricacy that's put into these things is mind blowing. As a lapidary guy, my wife cuts opals, and I've seen a lot of carvings, a lot of stuff on the Chinese markets and Vietnam markets and stuff like that. And there's some impressive pieces. Don't get me wrong, but nothing like this with this sort of consistency, let alone the cultural relevance that we started to see. And that's the thing when we started to triangulate some of the things that we were seeing. Um, it got kind of eerie in a sense because you've got a lot of wars and a lot of things that have happened over religion in the past. And so somewhere in there, I've never really been able to get to these guys were fighting these guys because of this. It was never that simple. No one could ever tell me in history class, well, it was a lot of things they said. It was money, all kinds of things. But truth was there was no definitive reason. And so seeing this all come together now in the places of the world that the pieces come out, like Turkey and Egypt, it's definitely something to make you think and make you curious about trying to get to the bottom of it, I guess. And so that's really what led me here. And now I'm 5 books deep and working on my sixth. And I spent 5 years and way too much money to admit to you here today. And but we have what I would say is a really good reason to research this deeper. I don't have anything on a level that's going to be peer reviewed at this point. I don't have any proof of that nature, but I've got thousands and thousands of hours of man hours digging in the ground in a nonstop, consistent story that started with absolutely nothing but some GPR scans and a farmer's property to now we have multiple pieces of land with three caves and this new area that they were digging a septic tank in at a house in Tula Hidalgo, and the ground caved in below them and opened up into a stone structure that had funerary type items and quite a bit of artifacts in it that matched up not only in the stonework but also in the metalwork. We found a currency of all things that's brass. So,
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So your belief at this point is that it is not human made. It's definitely extraterrestrial. So, and is
well,
that
it's not necessarily extraterrestrial. So what we know as extraterrestrial would be someone that came from another planet or something of that nature, right?
okay?
And so I believe here that this might actually be ultra-terrestrial in terms of extra dimensional,
Okay.
more into the ancient texts like the Enuma Elish with Tiamat and the gods that were created there, and that ties into the gods that were worshipped in Egypt, and then also ties into the divine intervention that changed everything at the beginning of our time period that we're currently existing in. But I think that a lot of these beings here, I'm going to flip my camera around just to kind of give an example here. You can see, um, there it is here. Definitely looks, like a winged angelic being, but none of these beings have feet hardly. Some of them do, like the creations here. You'll see this guy with four arms. So there's definitely a lot of that, and what shows to be DNA manipulation. There's the double-ended helix, or the double helix rather, and things of that nature. Let me
Hmm.
switch this back here.
That's amazing.
So it's really.
So are you finding them personally, or is it a combination of you finding and then also purchasing from other finders?
Yeah, it started out, I just purchased, and then these pieces were coming out. They were just going into the mountains, they were going into the river, and they were pulling pieces that were maybe 2 feet deep. And that wasn't enough to convince anyone anything at all. And so at that point, there was a gentleman named Steve Quayle. He runs Gen 6 Productions, and he does a lot of video work. And so he funded a full expedition down there with multiple people. They dug down to the 14-foot dig level, and they unearthed dozens and dozens of pieces on camera, and that wasn't enough either. And so they got down to a ground floor. They found a ground floor at the 14-foot level, and they thought that there might be royalty or some sort of tomb nearby, but they only had 2 weeks for their production. They weren't able to
Right.
continue. And so where I came in was this had gone on, and now all of a sudden there was these rings of different types of metals that had glass, blown glass in them, similar to stuff from Egypt, the blue, glass that they have.
Okay.
Um, and I just didn't believe it. And he said he had videos, but he wouldn't show them to me. He was working on a documentary, and I'm just like, yeah, no, sorry. And I made a video to point this guy out, and he took it quite offensively because he knew the truth. And he went out there and rented GPRs, ground penetrating radars, and started the documentation. And he went and redug that hole that they found the ground floor in. And as they were digging it out, I just released a video on my YouTube, so you can watch this literally as it unfolds. There was an entire collapse on the side of this dig site, 14 feet in the ground, and all of a sudden it opened up into a cave. And inside the cave, there was an alien statue standing there holding a snake. And there was petroglyphs that they were able to brush out that were of the same type of elongated head beings. Um, and symbology as well, like the Star of Inanna or the Venus star there that you can see over in the Mesopotamian areas. Same things we're finding here in these petroglyphs at the 14-foot, 15-foot levels.
Okay. Okay. This is super cool. So, like, I don't have any experience with the physical aspects of like doing any of this research and the names, and which is actually a really good thing, because I don't have any
Bias.
predisposition. I have no
Yeah.
bias, but I also have, so I won't have like specific names or labels that you guys use now because you've uncovered and now you know how to put the pieces together from what you're doing. But this is really fascinating, and the energy is shifting. It's very, very different. In fact, my dogs are freaking out, which normally it's 8 o'clock at night. Normally they've been sound asleep for an hour and they're done.
Huh.
So yeah, so I know. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question that may have you ever communicated with ETs or extraterrestrials or universal beings at all?
Not knowingly.
Okay. Okay. So um
I've had some
I
weird experiences, but I can't say that I've had a one-to-one. I've never had any verbal where I came out and said anything. However,
okay.
I have had experiences in the past, especially when I was experimenting with drugs as a early 20-year-old man. I used the ayahuasca DMT type substance a few times and had some really bizarre experiences with that. And so there's definitely things that I question and things of that nature, but no one's ever said anything back.
Okay. I love that. Okay, so there's a lot. Actually, it's really interesting because I didn't think that we would be going here, but this is what I love this work because you never know where you're going to go, and it's always awesome. So there are a number of beings here ready to share information for the questions that you already have, that you've already wanted answers to. However, what they want me to do is go back first, because there's a piece of this that we need to lay first. Like we need to lay some groundwork in the sense that, um, you know, you need to you need to understand, like I know you mentally understand, but they're showing me if you okay, here we go. So if you look at your life in this current life, it's it's like a blanket, but it's a blanket made of energy. Okay. And it's a blanket that's woven, and each strand of energy is woven and mixed in with each other. That's how, all the people in your life came together, how all the experiences in your life came together. But it's understanding that this is part of your higher calling. This is why you're here. And I know theoretically you know that, but there's also an understanding that everything that's come to pass is meant to be. And it's like over the next 8 to 12 months, there's going to be a new level of awareness of fulfillment in the sense of I have to keep going on this, and this is the only thing I'm meant to be doing. Like you're going to have your family and all of the things that you love and enjoy, but it's like, it's more than a craving. It's a yearning. It's a knowing that fulfillment is from following this path for you. And
Yeah.
right. And it's tricky. It's
Oh,
tricky
yeah.
when, the rest of the world thinks you're batshit crazy and you're like, I got to do it anyways. Trust me, I'm living that dream.
Yeah.
And but the reality is this is your dream and this is where you're meant to go. Now, you will, okay, something is going to happen, like a significant physical, it's like a transmission, but there's going to be an interdimensional conversation, communication, if you will, that is going to come in the not so distant future. So, what they're showing me is we're going to prepare for it tonight. And what that means is preparing you so that when it comes, instead of going, is this really happening right now? You're going to be like, oh, okay, I'm ready. Let's do it. Because then more information can get passed in a much more effective and efficient way, right? And
Absolutely.
and you know that now after spending so many years as, and I call it a healthy skeptic. And to me, a healthy skeptic is someone who's asking questions, but is actually open to the answers. Whereas, like that's skepticism.
Yeah.
The other that is cynicism, is there's
Yeah.
no way that this can happen, right? So,
Yeah.
you that's one of your biggest gifts, is you are a healthy skeptic, and you have that ability to question everything, but you question it with an open mind, not with a closed mind. That's
Right.
your gift,
Try
right?
to. Yeah.
Well, and I think there's definitely times where it's not as open, but then certain things will happen, right? And then all
Yeah.
of a sudden there's a string of things that are happening, and you're like, okay, okay, I can't pretend this isn't real anymore.
Yeah.
But it's understanding that that string is part of that blanket. It's part of how everything was woven together, specifically so that Michael would go, oh, I can't ignore it. Okay. So
Yeah.
this, like, 100% is um your your journey. So God, they're all here, and it's really cool because I haven't met these guys before. Um,
You ever read the Book of Knowledge from J.J. Hertog?
no.
Put that on your list.
I
Yeah.
am not okay, I will. The Book of Knowledge. Okay. Um, I, hold on. Okay, I wrote it down. There we go. Um, so these guys that are showing up. So when I say these guys, okay, it's like being in a room that's the size of a stadium, and they're filing in standing room only. That's how many. Okay. So there's, you know, I don't know, a few 100,000 that are showing up. And so universal, they're definitely universal. So they're not planetary specific. They're interdimensional in the sense that they can travel beyond the limits of this universe.
Yep.
And
That's ultra-terrestrial.
okay, that's the words. Okay.
Yep.
So I, okay. So ultimately, I would, yeah. So I'm definitely familiar with their energy, but I've never met them this intimately in this way. So this is really cool. So as a, okay, so as a collective agency is how I will, how they're using specific words to describe, um, they're using very specific words. So, um, okay, so as a collective agency, and so in agency in the sense that they are a group of beings who are actively participating in a purposeful, um, mm, it's not
In order.
exploration. Well, they're working on a project, and their their goal, their aim, their intention for this project is that humanity remembers who we are and why we were created. And so ultimately, that's all of humanity is working on this project right now, right? All of humanity, all of the universal beings from all different dimensions,
Yep.
their particular role is to contribute to um, so the ancient physical origins of the ancient origins of physical existence, which is obviously much younger than universal existence, right? And energy existence. We know that.
Yep.
I actually am just starting exploring the story of existence and creation itself. So this is really interesting that this is happening all when it is, and timing is
It all happens for a
fascinating.
reason. It's that blanket you're talking about. Yeah.
Right? Yes. And so what they're sharing is that it's really cool. It's like they're showing me a cave, okay? But it's like, okay, so it's the cave is deep and it's empty, but it's got like stalactites on the top, right? So the crystals that sort of come down.
Hmm.
But what they're showing me is it's not even crumbling. It's that chunks of the roof are being removed. And what that's signifying, why they're showing me that way is it's, oh, wow. So the crystals that come down from the top, it's like the energy that has, and this is going to sound crazy, but I'm going, this is what they're showing me. So it's like that's the energy that has been blocking our awareness from coming out. You know, it's what's kept us hidden behind. It's literally like we're all wearing these masks, but we can't see them. But energetically, they're all there. So we can't really see the truth, right? That's so what they're showing me is their job is to remove the tops of these caves. And why they're saying caves is that it's like the way the cave is, it represents the inside of the human mind. And inside, it's deep, it's dark. There's so much density and diversity to humans, but we can't access it because it's been it's been blocked like by this thing that's not only been put on top, but it's like jamming down into the system, right? Like if you wanted to jam a system from working properly, right, that you
You
would,
would use a magnetic field,
okay. So,
right?
well, that and then some. And so
Yeah.
it's interesting. Yes. Oh my gosh.
What's
It's
really
like,
interesting is I was told that around July that there would be a magnetic change from someone that I look at as a, I mean, a very, very intelligent man. And he said that July was going to be a really interesting month for this magnetic change.
huh,
And yeah.
okay. So there's a few things that have to happen. It's already happening. So these are already being removed in minuscule ways. And what I mean by minuscule is there's a handful of people here that know. There's a handful of people here that know.
Yeah.
And they're laying the groundwork for what's coming because humanity has been around for billions of years. And yet our understanding is, it's like, I don't know, 10,
8,000 or
20, right?
yeah.
At the most, 10,
Yeah.
20,000 years. And so you can't just overnight go, here's 2 billion years of awareness. It won't happen. We
Yeah.
have to build up the awareness. So it's kind of like creating a whole bunch of healthy, skeptical humans, if you will,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
creating the space
Disclosure
for,
in a nutshell, really. Yeah.
because I remember even my son said to me like a year ago, he's like, Mom, can they just come back now, all the ETs? And I said, well, what do you think would happen if they just started walking down the street? And he's like, oh, I don't know if I want to see them. And I said, right. And that's how most people feel. The reality is you're part of the, okay, so they just showed me a stage preparing for a performance. You're part of the crew who's prepping to make sure that when this performance begins, people are ready to see it. That makes sense, yes?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, from what I understand and yeah, 100%.
And
Yeah.
so it's also now getting to that place where they need to prep you for for your starring role because there's a part of you that's like, it's so much easier to make sure that everybody else is in the spotlight. And I'm just going to keep, highlighting this aspect and this aspect. And there's a big part of you that's like, Oh, I don't want to be an expert. If I'm an expert, then that means that it puts me in the line of fire, right? That people can judge me more. Yes?
Right. Oh yeah, it's healthier to stay skeptic in this world right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's great. And yet you also have known for a long time that you're the one who's meant to be doing this. So there is there's a number of transmissions. So transmissions are how the way they're showing me is like information that'll be downloaded to you should you choose to experience or receive it. That you will then be able to become like a satellite for that information that you'll then be able to share with other humans, right?
Hmm.
You already have awareness of a lot of these things. So this is not anything new to you at the beginning, but it is understanding that in order to hold space for other people to also gain that awareness, it's a new level. It's like next level vibration in yourself. Okay. So if you think about it, the way they're showing me is that blanket that's woven specifically for you, you need to create a space where you can hold that energy that helps other people start to recognize their own blanket and how it is meant to be in the universe, how it connects to everything. Because this really is about our connection to all things. That's the heart of what you're exploring, what you're excavating. Yes, there's a lot of really cool artifacts. There's a lot of really cool explorations and digging and, camaraderie. But at the heart of it, everything connects back to our connection to
The
a bigger,
geometry.
yeah, everything. It's a bigger reason for existence, right? It's a bigger
That in a
awareness of
nutshell is like
existence.
the flower of life, the sacred geometry. That in my mind is what I see when you're explaining this. Is like that is that fabric that weaves it all together. Like that design
Love
and that
that.
shape is that penetrates through. Then that math alone in itself, if you understand it, is something that is just deep in it. It's a rabbit hole, but it's absolutely amazing how everything in the world is derived from this math and this shaping. It's really that's why it's sacred.
It's really cool because I haven't studied any of that on the physical side and the math side, but I've studied it from the inside, the energy side. So I love, this is the first conversation I've had with anyone about it, like in this way. It's very interesting for me.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an out of body going, okay, yeah. So the challenge, like you can see where that is your skill is, understanding universal energy in this physical, but it's also recognition that you now have to transcend the physical to get to that next level so the awareness can come in,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yep.
that's how we were created. We weren't created to receive information on the physical and then translate everything on the physical, because 99% of universal energy cannot be translated into math and to physical energy. It just can't, because our brains do not have the capacity, because our brains were not designed to drive the show, right? Our brains were designed to literally tell us when something was off or on in the physical realm.
Yeah.
That's really important. That's where, so in order for you to transcend that and go to that next level, which is what you're ready for. I mean, they're showing me it's like it's been an amazing journey, but the last 6 months, you're like, okay, I need more. Like there's a piece missing. There's a fulfillment aspect missing. It's like, it's fun and it's exciting, but the answers aren't coming. The pieces aren't coming together, right? Does that make sense? Like the connection, the bigger connections.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, like there's definitely big gaps still that are in the way hurdle wise. But as far as There's definitely a clear path that's lit up, I think, and that's also, I mean, when I trust my gut on this, it's instantly that's how it's gotten me here to this point. I trust it faithfully, and at this point, that is faith to me is trusting that gut or that divine plan because that knowledge is coming to my brain somehow through this nerve, and I mean, there's real no. I think Fred Flintstone was the best example here, where his conscience would battle all the time, and he'd have an angel on one shoulder and a devil over here, and if you look at the two eyes in Egypt, the eye of Horus and the eye of Ra, they're essentially a mirror of the pineal gland inside the brain, and this gland is what creates all of the chemicals that we dream with, that create us to have psychedelic experiences, to manage and to distribute the other things that make us feel good and laugh, and serotonin, dopamine, that sort of thing. So this gland is so crucial for this, and it's really interesting to see that parallel down, that this is almost like a portal in our brain of this knowledge that comes into us, or that that's why we're dualistic in nature, I guess, is a better way to say it. Yeah.
Okay. So good.
Sorry, I
Uh,
run off on these things.
no, it's so good. I just my I don't have awareness of that level in the brain that you do. I literally, when I go in, I have to turn my brain off. So I'm having a conversation and I'm like, what?
Uh-huh.
It's really funny
Yeah.
because I'm working with just the energy. So okay. So I feel like I know that there's a couple artifacts that you were looking at that we could maybe work together on. Was that
There's quite a few,
okay?
definitely.
Is there one in particular? Start with one at a
I want
time.
to show you one thing for sure, since we were just talking. Oops, I hit the wrong button here. There we go. So
Oh
we were just
yeah.
talking about this geometry and this energy flow, and what's really interesting is I was talking to a lingual expert, and he said that these represented energy flow. And I just asked him on like a simple two symbol thing of what these
Mhm.
symbols meant, because they're found in Egypt and Sumerian. And what's really crazy, if I lift this up, you can
Oh
see on
wow.
here it's the flower of life or the seed of life, one of the two, that's carved in there. And so it's really interesting to see that with this ring within a ring depiction, something very biblical, I guess you could say, in a sense, but also very alien.
It's
Yeah.
well, okay, so I just wrote down Flower of Life. I've got to study this because I've heard it in passing. I have no idea what it is, but that's okay. So let's go back to that one, if you
Mhm.
don't mind.
Oh,
Would
yeah,
you like me to see what history they share about that?
definitely. Yeah, this is
Okay.
a special one here.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first thing that they're sharing is it's so in our human sense of time and space, that dates back to approximately 45,000 years.
Hmm.
Yeah, because, okay, it goes back to a time where, mm, oh, this is going to sound anyways, I'm just going to go deeper into the energy, okay?
Yep.
So it goes back to a time before time and space were huh, uh they weren't hand in hand with each other yet, and yet it was a oh boy. Okay, so the way the rings come together and the way that they fit is recognition of how existence plays out when it's like when one intention for existence meets another.
Hmm.
And because, okay, because existence itself works together. That's how creation works, is every aspect of existence, it knows how to work with every other aspect of existence. innately because it's part of creation. You can't create something in existence that doesn't know about everything else.
Hmm.
Yeah, which is interesting because that's where humanity is struggling, but it's not because we were created that way, it's because we were manipulated that way, which is very, very different. Now, the okay, truth and purity. So the vessel in the middle and the it's a recognition that it all comes back to truth and purity, and that's the reason for existence. So, okay. So when I say truth and purity, right? Purity is it's a vibration that allows everything in creation to be what it is, right? It's its pure form. It's
Hmm.
not manipulated. And truth is it's a recognition of that. So they work hand in hand. But what's really interesting about this piece is it also depicts the movement of energy and the movement of the vibration of energy within each cell in physical existence. So this is literally the it's like a replica of physical existence cells, if you will, atoms. I don't know enough scientific terms, but everything that comes into existence on the physical side from the energetic side, the shape is that. Does
You want
that
to know why I
make
laugh?
no?
So,
Tell.
so essentially, this is most likely the vessel or the Merkaba that they talked about in ancient times, where this rings within the rings would be carried, and so it's really an interesting thing because the Merkaba is what allows people to travel through the heavens and go through different dimensions and travel ultra-terrestrially. So this is how these beings likely would come in. The spheres and things that we're seeing in the air could be this type of vessel that is coming in and out of our dimension, is kind of how I'm seeing it.
So we yes, okay, but we don't travel in a physical vessel. We travel through vibration of energy, and that's
Yeah,
what there's so
a
when
light
we
vessel.
right when we transcend from vibration, like energetic vibration, into physical vibration, that is a replica of the cells, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
really
and that's
cool.
interesting that it would be sitting on top of the blanket, you know?
Yeah, and ultimately it is okay, so that's a separate piece
Mhm.
that represents the growth and stability of the universe itself
Okay.
and existence itself. Because here we go. Oh, this is so cool. Because every time a new aspect of existence comes into existence, existence itself grows and expands. So the awareness of it's like how when we learn something new, it's
Mm-hmm.
like our brains grow a little bit more, right?
Yep.
Existence grows every time a new aspect of existence comes into existence. So it expands the potential and possibility, right? Because my
Makes sense.
understanding is we're all here to explore our own potential.
Hmm.
That's the reason for human existence and the souls of humans and the souls of all universal beings in this particular universe. So yeah, that's so they go together. They enhance each other, but they're also in their own realms of existence, those two pieces. But together they are even more powerful. So that's really cool. Thank you.
Interesting. Interesting.
Wow. It's very cool. Okay.
So like this being here is really interesting to me. I actually wrote a book on it, and we saw it in a few different fashions, and this is actually the all-seeing eye that's being depicted there. There's other depictions of this being, and it shows it more clearly, but you can see that if I can focus it here, the DNA strand,
Hmm.
maybe.
Little
If you put
focus.
it a little further away, you can see it better, I think.
There we go.
Yeah,
Okay. I had to switch the cameras around.
you're so good. I am so tech
But
challenged. It's awesome.
this is also pretty interesting here. We got a lot of, I'll show over here too, like these star maps. And this is like the night sky with the North Star in the middle here with our constellations around. But the night sky only shows this way once every, a specific, I think it's like 16,000 years or something
Yeah.
like that. So it's interesting to,
But see, that's how the calendar originally was.
oh,
Right. So we never had a 12-month calendar or a 13-month calendar that everybody, it doesn't, yeah. The calendar originally went with the stars and the way
hmm
the stars go. Um, and then, yeah, but it's not even a calendar, it's just a marking of existence. But what happens as everything goes together, right? I mean, we know here, right? We have the sun and the moon and all the, the layers, and they impact our physical existence on Earth because that's what's happening.
yeah,
But the depictions that you guys are finding, they're similar, but it's just a longer, sort of speak, if you will, calendar, right? Like it's just a bigger,
yeah,
right? It's
no,
brilliant.
totally. Yeah,
But what it's also showing us is this, it's highlighting the lie, right? That humanity has just been around for, 10, 20,000 years, right? Like
yeah.
it's billions of years. So,
I think there's a little asterisk at the end of this. So, scientists and academia agrees that it's 8,000 or 10,000 years old. But now we have Göbekli Tepe testing at 12 to 14,000 years old, and other sites and things carvings being found that are in the 20 and 30,000 years old. What I think that we found here is that the human being that we are, Adam, or whatever you want to call us, Homo sapien, or whatever version we are, 2.5, but that's the thing. That's been around for around that 8 to 10,000 year mark. I think that's the dawn of our civilization. But when we see on these pieces,
mm,
there's tons of different species created. And if you look back in biblical and Enuma Elish, there was also different serpent beings and giants and all these different things that were created. A lot of them claim to be failed experiments, and I think that's the logicality of why there was such a younger Dryas moment where a lot of these large mammals and things died off in the Americas, and also the Southern Pacific went completely underwater. Places like Easter Island and things. I don't think that was always just this little tiny area. There was probably a lot more that we haven't found under there.
yeah. My understanding is this is the fifth iteration of human existence.
Okay.
So that makes total sense. What you're
Yeah.
saying is 100%. But this, because just like everything, right? You try it and you're like, oh, well, that's not really working. Let's try it again. Um, and different things have happened in each one of them. But I do feel like this current one, they're showing me it's about 80 to 90,000 years. So that's 90,000, not 8 or 9, but 80
Yeah.
or 90,000. But the thing is that contrary to popular belief, is originally it's harder to find physical remnants of that because we didn't live as densely, if that makes sense. We
hmm
lived at a different vibration, right? We didn't need food and shelter and clothing and the way that we do now. So you
Yeah.
wouldn't find residences or remnants of, structures. You're not going to find remnants of cooking vessels because that's not what was important. What was important at that point was experience and existence because we had the wherewithal to exist in freezing temperatures and super hot temperatures naturally, right? We didn't walk around with clothes on because we didn't have all of the reasons that we need to wear clothes nowadays, right? Because there was truth. It was based on truth and purity. So you didn't have all the not good things running around, so to speak, in all different, whether it was people's minds. So there isn't going to be footprints in the sense of that way. However, there is the things that you guys, like what you are starting to uncover. So there are secrets that the earth has been keeping, if you will, and she's starting to reveal them. But she's starting to reveal them with the help of all these beings. So this is the project that they were talking about. This is where they're all coming in and making sure pieces are here. You know, there's a piece placed in front of Michael, and then there's another one, and there's another one. So Michael can put these together and start to tell their story, right?
Yeah.
But in
Yeah.
a way that makes it accessible and approachable to others so that they can, because the moment, here's the reality, right? Is it's hard for our brains to sometimes accept, but you can't ignore, like you talked about earlier, right? That instinct, that gut feeling. When you have it, it's like, oh, okay, this really is happening, but no, it can't be happening. I'm just going to be all skeptical up here. Meanwhile, energetically, it's like, holy shit, this is happening now, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So, you know, you're a huge part of leading that charge, but also that's what they're saying. So now you're going to be stepping into, there's a difference between introducing people to the concept to preparing them for the next step. That's what you're transitioning from into. So
It's a
you've
good
been
way to put that. It's a really good way to put that. Yeah.
So that's where you are. You're in that transition. So you've been introducing them while getting comfortable with that idea that you're going to be the one who helps prepare them. And, you know, I mean, really, right? We go back to that same thing. If they just started walking down the street, but it's also recognition that when you see the bigger picture, it's almost like the way they're showing me is it's our own alien selves that are coming back. That's how they're kind of showing me. And that's the part that you're going to really drive home. It's like that's going to be your sweet spot. Like how they showed it, it's like one of those big, huge, comfy chairs, and you just settle right into that. And then it's like all of a sudden the room is filled in the room by like a stadium sized room where all these people are, when it's like story time
Yeah.
and everyone's going to come and listen to you because you're you're approachable, but they can feel it through you. And that's what they were talking about earlier, is those transmissions that are going to start to come to create a vibration in you so that you can now broadcast more truth about this information. So right now you have a stream of information coming in, and you're broadcasting that vibration. You're holding that vibration that says there's a bigger truth here.
Mhm.
And that's the transition, is you going into a place where you can broadcast a vibration that says, now I have the truth to share with you. And, I'm going to hold it until you're ready to hold it for yourself.
Yeah.
Because the universe has been holding it for you until you were ready to hold it for others. So as you've been getting comfortable, right? That's really what the last 10 years really have been about in your journey is, things had to change in your life for you to become open to this. So there were some things that happened there, and
Big
then
time.
and then you became open, and then the more you experienced and the more you kept pushing and changing. And so now you're at this place where you're stable. Your stability comes from an inner understanding and an inner recognition of your higher calling and why you're here, and you know that this is part of it. But
Just understanding in general. Yeah.
but what I love the most, Michael, is that you're like, it's your purity in your openness that is what is going to draw people to you. You know, that healthy skepticism that I talked about, you will be able to communicate that in a way that puts people at ease, so that when you tell the stories, when you bring this truth to light, it will be accepted in a way it hasn't been before, because other people were out to prove and you're out to explore, which is very different.
Yeah. Yeah.
How does that make sense?
No,
Gosh.
100%. I mean, there's a lot of truth to that, because a lot of people who see these artifacts, that they immediately just see money and dollar signs, and there's obviously, there's money. Anytime you find something that other people want, there's going to be this corruption of money. But I definitely feel that this is by far bigger than that. That's why I say first thing is we need to have a museum for these pieces, because it's not something that any one person should personally try to endure because of that. These are sacred items that not only just have value, but possibly have alchemical or technology, data information. I mean, who knows what type of advanced skills that these people had. But I'll tell you what, after researching into Sumerian and the Babylonians specifically, and how the Ottoman Empire took their information at the fall of Constantinople, and how that sparked World War I and inevitably World War II from this, and seeing the type of technology and things like this truth has been chased for a lot longer than I think what people know of as Roswell.
Yes. Yes. And the other side is remembering that everything in your room has actually been created by humans at some point. So they're ETs, but we're ETs. This is really important, because really and truly what you're doing is you're uncovering the sacred aspects of what humanity is capable of. So
Yeah.
as much as right now our brains want to look at them as ETs, it's actually us. And
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
piece that has been missing. It honestly, it's the way they're showing me. If nothing else gets heard from this podcast experience for people, that is what you're doing, is you're bringing that truth of human existence back into the forefront of our conscious and collective awareness, and that in itself is a massive gift. It's, and like, I thank you for it. And I thank you for being committed in spite of a world that doesn't necessarily want to be open to that.
There's a strong force trying to keep this a secret. And for what reason? I haven't accepted that reason. And I don't try to point fingers at this point. All I know is that without chaos, you cannot have order. And without the threat of death, there's no reason to live. So, with this math in front of us, a cover up or conspiracy, all these things happening, it's what makes the wisdom worth holding and sharing. And I think that's really what we'll come to terms of, is that's a way grander gift than anything at this point. That's the only thing really I think we can take with us, is that wisdom.
Yes. Yes. And it's interesting, because in 2019, when things started to go all over the place, what the messages, the awareness that I kept getting was, the people who are changing things behind the scenes are doing the work they need to. And the other stuff on the surface that we were all being taught to deal with, it was covering up. It was keeping everyone busy. For those who have those bigger works and those bigger things to do, they were doing it. And it's now that those works are coming out. So people like you've been doing it, you've been seeing it. There's other humans who are doing all kinds of things to reveal the truth, right? And to prepare us. And you can see how beautiful that, there's so many people that are angry and frustrated with how things worked and how they're turning out. But if you can ignore that, because that it's actually incredible that it it's everything is divine. It is absolutely working exactly how it's meant to, because if there wasn't so much anger and frustration and fear, right? Humans in the current state, we only change when our backs are against the wall. What better way to put humans' backs against the wall than all the things that have happened in the last, right, 5 years?
Absolutely. It's what we
So,
need, I guess.
yeah. Oh my gosh. So, how are you feeling? Would you like to do a couple more artifacts, or would you?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right,
Yeah.
you pick. Let's go for, or do you have any questions too? If you have any
Um,
questions about anything in particular.
I don't have any questions offhand here. Let me flip my
Okay.
camera around. I'll think about that though. Let me. I'm trying to. You said pieces, so I immediately like started running through my head of which one here. There's. This is a really interesting one here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. As soon as my head almost, it's almost like a headache. Can you turn that one over?
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's interesting. Okay. Let's go back to
Quite the work.
it
Yeah.
is unbelievable. Yes. And you can see yourself in
I'm
it.
gonna grab.
That
Oh
is
yeah, it's
interesting.
obsidian and very well polished. I'm gonna grab the base of it just so I can stick it in front of
The
us here.
way that
And look at this.
it's like the mask of truth is what I'm. Oh, wow. Okay. So that's unbelievable. So it's a lot of energy. So this is a different timeline again.
Okay.
This is a younger timeline. Um, but its depiction is of it's self-recognition, which is actually really interesting, because I'm going to tell you that 2025 is the year of respect, and respect is the universal energy of self-recognition. So
Interesting.
it is very interesting that that's the piece you picked up, of course. Um, uh-huh. Divine synchronicity at its best. So it is recognition. Like, let's put it this way. If the sun decided, because the sun is a conscious being, it's not just a piece of rock or gases out there in the universe, not knowing what it's doing. Everything is conscious. And that's what ultimately that first piece was depicting, is the consciousness within everything. It's the awareness, right? So this one is recognition of self. It's that, and I'll use the sun because it's such a powerful expression and it's so simple, that if the sun decided to become more powerful, humanity would die. If the sun decided to become less powerful, humanity would die in like a split second. It wouldn't be like, oh, look what's happening. Like, it would just happen. And that's, and what I mean by more powerful or less powerful is if the sun were to decide to change because that's how I know him, it change his aspect of existence and who he was meant to be in this universe, then every aspect of existence is reflected in that. And humanity needs to remember that, because this is why we can't regain our power until we can recognize that aspect of existence. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Yeah.
So this was symbolizing the power of self-recognition in a way that, so the way they're showing me is these pieces they were created for now. And I know that this is going to sound really crazy. They're not artifacts that were created for them and they were instruments that they used. This is really important, because
Okay.
yeah, they were created for this time in existence when we
Hmm.
needed to remember. So they created them through the vibration of the truth and purity, so that when we needed them most, because so when humanity became manipulated and our awareness started to shift, they knew that this time was coming where we would forget. They knew it was a possibility. And so it was pre, it's like the backup plan to make sure that humanity wouldn't have to cease to exist so another one would start, right? This was what the creator really, his intention with this one was that we would come back and we would remember, because he genuinely believes that humans can do this. And we stack the deck in our favor. That's what all of these pieces are. They're all depictions of sacred universal existence.
Interesting.
Everyone that's being uncovered, whether it's, artifacts like this, whether it's, pyramids that are still underground, whether there's carvings that are still underground, there's the full cities that are underground. I mean, I've
Hmm.
traveled and visited cities underground many, many times that humans have yet to excavate because we're not ready yet, but we're getting more and more ready because more excavations are being revealed, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and the technology too is just it's going to allow us to see into the ground um, much more readily available and cost effectively as well.
Well, and at the end of the day, right? Like humans can do that individually. We don't need GPR. We don't need those things.
That's true.
However, we need them right now until we can remember and have that confidence, right? Like when we can restore that healthy skepticism inside of each of us, then we can do those things, but we can't
Hmm.
yet fully. Anyways, okay, keep going. This is fantastic. I'm having fun.
This here's a 4 foot long
Oh,
limestone
wow.
trident.
Limestone. It's
The
gorgeous.
the head on this thing is made of it's half silver, part iron, and part tin.
Okay, so it's really interesting that you say that because um I did an exploration in May of last year talking about different metals and how there are certain metals that are vital to human existence.
Hmm.
Um, Silver was definitely one of them. Okay, so trifecta. Okay, so that word it's interesting because it is a symbolism of the three parts.
Hmm.
But here's the thing, it's the three parts that are necessary for communication to occur. And what I mean by that, so the reason that it's like held in the hand, okay? And so that symbolizes the connection. Like if you're holding it in your hand as a staff, right?
Yep.
And you are, so it is now going to generate energy from you. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yep. Absolutely.
And then what will happen is wherever you point it, so intentionally, you're now going to be communicating energy out. This is again, you know, I mean, it's funny because when you think about it, right, in cartoons and movies and all of these things, it's depicted as a weapon,
Hmm.
but it is not a weapon. It is a representation of our connection and our communication. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
the Trinity and the three is something that I see a lot of in terms of it's often symbolized. I'll show you actually on a piece here I've got sitting
My
in this
mind
cabinet.
is like reeling from learning all of this in this way. It's lovely. It's so simple, right? Like universally, everything is so simple. It's humans who complicate everything. Oh, okay.
See
Yes.
the eye with the right and the left, the Trinity there is something that we see on a lot of things.
Huh. That is very, oh gosh. Gosh, they just keep coming.
It's addictive.
Well, I mean, that's right. Once you
The
find one piece and
duality
then you want
too.
to, yeah, but okay, so the left is the blood in the body.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh boy. And then the right, so the left is the body and the physical side.
Yeah,
Yep.
spiritual and physical. That's why you have to weigh the heart against the feather. I think that's what this
No,
kind of
look,
symbolizes.
the left side. So the side, so in your hand, how I'm seeing it, I don't know if your camera is back. So that with the red spot, that signifies the body, that side. The other side is the connection, the vibration, and the energy.
Oh, okay.
Yes, which is interesting because so the even the eye, like the physical, it's all the physical, how we see. And then on the other side, it's the vibration, it's the so those triangles that are there, you're going to use much fancier words than I am. Um, so you can see, like even see how the waves are there, the wave on the
Yep.
bottom left,
Positive
and
and negative.
yes, it's
Yeah.
the vibration of the energy. It's everything to do with the energy on that
Yeah.
side. I
Sine
mean, we
waves
could
for sure.
pick it apart for days, but
And the
ultimately,
infinity. Yeah.
yeah, it's all about the energy on the right and the physical on the left and the two coming together, which
Interesting.
is the true divine union,
Hmm.
right? It's, I mean, it's fascinating that people, anyways, we won't go there. Oh, okay. I think we have time for one more. If you have
All
one
right.
more, let's do it.
Let's see here.
I'll probably do it all night, but my goodness, yeah.
Oh, this will be a popular one because everybody's always asking about these pine cones that they're holding in their hands and what they
Hmm.
represent and
Oh,
yeah.
that's interesting. Right, instantly my teeth got really I got very aware of my teeth. So,
Interesting. I'm gonna grab
yeah,
the thing behind here just
it
to show you
is.
the. You can see there's a
Oh, wow.
luminescence on a lot of these pieces as well. Actually, I'll turn off the lights before we're done
Yeah.
just so you can see a broader perspective of how ridiculous they went into intricately putting luminescent and phosphorescent properties into these stones or picking these specimen for that.
Yeah.
This whole stone will glow red and green. It'll fade red to green when you hit it with the ultraviolet.
Okay, so you know what's really interesting? Right when we started our conversation and they were talking about the blanket and
Mhm.
how it's all woven together with energy, right? All of those colors, like all of the colors in existence were woven through. And so that again, representation, right? Of energy. Okay, so there's a bunch of different aspects. Um, gosh, why do I keep seeing them throwing them? Okay, so I just need to feel into this. Hmm. It's the way they're showing me. It's like the gods. And again, this is not like Greek gods. This is not like anything you study anywhere. And this is beyond what's here currently.
Mhm.
Um, it's almost like they're throwing them out like you would like
Passing the
snowflakes,
punch.
like
Okay.
snowflakes. No, like
Okay.
snowflakes.
Okay.
Like it's they're it's recognition that hmm, tell me something. When you hold that, does it feel, can you feel the energy in it?
Oh yeah.
Right. Does it feel warm?
No.
Okay. So I'm just gonna I'm gonna hold it from here. I'm in a totally different country, let alone different side of it. Um, and I'm gonna see if I can warm it up for you. There we go. So what's happening? So here's the thing. All of these pieces, right? Like they all hold their own energies. This one and these ones in particular are about throwing energy around, if you will. And what that means is it's like,
Like magic.
well, kind of. I mean, I remember when I first started doing this, this was like
It,
18 years ago. And
I think it's alchemy, actually, if you want to give it a real term, and
well,
I find these sigils. I'm going to show you this piece, just kind of a side project here, but see all these sigils on here? some of these have been matched up to alchemical things, and what it shows on there is like multiple layers of beings.
Interesting too. So
It's quite
al
the piece.
right, so alchemy is the process of going from one state of being to another.
Right.
Now, like yeah, it's not about okay, so it's not about the chemical substances. It's about how all the parts of existence come together. So energy is transmutable, it's movable, it's motion. It's like
Mhm.
that piece and its brothers and sisters, if you will, represent the movement of energy itself. And it's really interesting because I keep seeing them in moving, like in waves, like literally in ocean waves being carried like sand would be, right? You know,
Mhm.
as the tide comes in and goes out. But they needed a way to make sure that humans, we could restore our faith in self-recognition. This one, I know it's funny because it looks the simplest and yet it needs a like a full lesson just so the way they're showing me.
I see that.
Because it's so intricate in our nature, right?
Hmm.
And yet it's such a simple aspect of our nature, but yet it's the one that it's our most hidden. It's our basic, but it's our base that is going to allow us to resurrect, if you will, because
Interesting.
that's what humanity has to do. We have to resurrect.
Yep.
And that's why they've scattered so many of those around the earth and more are being found all the time because it needs to when you hold that and you see the bioluminescence, all of those, the reality is you can't ignore it. You can't go,
Hmm.
oh, somebody just put this here, right? Somebody just painted this in their basement and then they stuck it here.
I've
It has
tried.
a vibration, right? Exactly. But it has a vibration that you can't ignore. That's
Yeah.
why they threw them, like they chucked them all over the planet, literally, if you
Hmm.
will, like, and to make sure that they would be found in abundance.
Interesting.
And a lot of people don't recognize they are when they find them, and that's fine. They
Yeah.
don't need to, and they get thrown back. And then the right people come along and find them again. So it's wow, it's very cool. Gosh, we could do this for hours. I know that the viewers are going to be like, no, can you go back and do more?
You're right. Yeah. There's always next time for sure.
There's
Now, I'm gonna
always
cut this
next
light
time.
off real quick and show you this.
Yes.
You can see them glowing already here.
Oh
Hang
my
on, let me turn this
gosh.
back.
It is so cool. Look at that. It's incredible. It's incredible. Wow. You know, this is what I love about is this is our heritage. This is our roots. And it is so
What?
incredible.
Why do you suppose, or actually, maybe even a better question is, how do you suppose that they were able um, to see this? Was it because of, because this is ultraviolet light and it doesn't glow long enough to,
Yep.
to just put out in the sun, like the sun is not gonna do anything for this. So, how
Because
did they get these to light up?
our eyes, we didn't need it to light up because our eyes could see everything for what it was. They actually they took the specimens to ensure, like, to create this experience so that we could remember. Because when I'm when I'm traveling, when I'm communicating with universal beings, I'm seeing all of that, right? Like, I
Mhm.
don't, when I see souls, I don't see your soul doesn't walk around looking like physical Michael, right? It looks like vibration and pure energy. And which is fascinating because now that's that symbol. Oh my gosh. Okay, I learned so much tonight. This is fantastic. I feel like a kid in a candy store. Oh my gosh.
That's
Um,
awesome.
it is awesome, but we didn't, we could see everything, right? Like even the colors that, are on our, artist palettes here, they got nothing on the colors of the universe. Nothing, right? So
But it requires an ultraviolet spectrum in order to enhance the electrons to
yeah,
create that glow. So they had to have had a way of exterminating. And there's talks in a lot of biblical and also ancient texts that have halos and splendors and however you want to pronounce it, but these that the holy beings and the divine beings had splendors. They would light up a room, etc. So my theory is that there was times when gods walked with men on this planet, at least in terms of Zepteki or Teksepi rather, and the golden eras in the Greek. I mean, there's multiple counts of it all over the place, but I think that like you said, humans created these to remember and to maybe pay homage, and so maybe that those gods were still in presence, and they maybe made presence, and these were the idols that they made to worship them. And when they came, they lit up like Christmas trees, but there had to have been a purpose why these people made this to remember on this quantity, and that's, I guess, really the bizarre thing is why so many of them,
well, that's what they were saying because think about it. We got 8 billion people here. So 8 billion skeptics. That's a lot of people to prove. And there's a lot of people who are not open skeptics. There's a lot of people who are, wow. But the reality is, it wasn't so um, gods were not different than humans. And yet they were. We this is going to be a whole other lesson in itself.
Yeah.
But
I'm
but
sorry. Yeah.
no, it's okay. It's just it's cool. But what I will say is you're right now, you're coming from it from a human perspective that wants to come up underneath. So it's almost like you want the answers to be inside the umbrella and you're keeping them inside the umbrella by trying to get it to come down into your brain, right? So taking universal awareness and taking it into your brain and into all the beliefs you already have. Where does this new information make sense in the beliefs I already have? Where you need to go, and this is what they were sharing, this is where those downloads are going to come, is your job and our job as humanity right now is to allow all of those files in our brain to go, because you're never going to forget what you know, ever, because you have it, you've experienced it. It will never disappear. It will always be there when you need it. However, our job is to go, oh, that's universal awareness. Okay, show me how it makes sense. Instead of trying to bring it down, our job is to rise to meet it. Because
Yeah.
that's the only way we're going to restore. Because again, right, ancient humans didn't need physical anything. Everything was through vibration and energy, everything we needed, right? How did they build? They sure as hell didn't build what are those huge pyramids by hand with men on and sticks and try you like geez.
It's just no
Right.
way.
No,
Yeah.
everything was through energy, but
Yeah.
it was through energy, by energy, for energy, with energy, right? And that's the thing is our job is to figure out the aspects of energy, not the aspects of physical, but we keep coming from it from a physical perspective, right? The science and the what's the technology that our ancient selves used is so far beyond anything we're even touching the surface on. And it's really funny because we've been taught to think this is revolutionary and this is revolutionary and this new phone is revolutionary.
Oh yeah.
The technology that is mainstream is ridiculous, but even the stuff that's hidden still, like people are like, oh, we're so far ahead. that bioluminescence, we could see it naturally with the naked eye because we had the ability to do that,
Wow.
right? We had the ability to see into and beyond anything and everything. So our job now is to how to do that and to restore that ability instead of trying to bring into, well, why would they do this? Every single specimen in that room, with the exception of maybe one or two, they're showing me, is all about recognition of the human race. It is not, they were not tools that they used to, do this and what did they do with that and what did they, every single one was an aspect of existence that has been, um, um, what's the word, like a representation of an aspect of existence so that humanity wouldn't forget it, so we would remember it.
Hmm.
And so the job now is to ask, what aspect of existence was this portraying? What do we
Okay.
have to learn about our own selves through our ancestors and the gifts they gave us? Which may be a different way of looking at it. And yet I feel like it's kind of similar at the same time, right? But it's looking at it in a different way that says, okay, how can we rise instead of how can we take this and bring it into what we know now?
Right.
If that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. I mean, uh, on many levels, actually, the need to raise your vibrations. You hear this a lot in the industry, of course, but there's more to that, I think, in terms of an ancient past and something that we're truly trying to do. I read a book called the Pistis Sophia. It's a Gnostic text, and I mean it slam dunks on that on so many levels that really that's what sticks out like a sore thumb in my head when you're talking like that is the
Okay.
Pistis Sophia. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. I love, see, and I haven't read any of his books, which,
You're in for a treat.
well, it was good
Yeah.
because I wasn't meant to, right? They
Right.
strategically, like I had a library full, even in my house. And I remember this is like 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And every time I'd go to pick one up, the phone would ring, people would come to the door. And when none of those disturbances, the words would actually move on the page. And they strategically didn't want me to learn through other people's belief systems. I
Right.
literally was forced to learn through firsthand experience of energy itself, which is great. And yet it's hard to explain that to other people when they're like, have you read this book? And I'm like, nope, nope, I can't. And I probably won't because
And that's respectable. Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to go off course.
well, you can't. You have to follow your course. And then there's other
Right.
books that do come and they're there and they're meant to. And it's just fascinating. We all we're we're driven in a direction that propels us to reach our full potential, right? And like you say, it's that instinct, it's that knowing, and you just have to do it. And you have to follow it. And it's when we don't that we feel remorse,
That's when you meet karma.
right? And
Yeah.
and life gets harder. It gets harder when we don't follow it. Yes, you agree?
Oh, I submit on my knees many moons ago, and I don't argue my gut at this point. Like I tried so hard to outsmart myself when I was a young kid, and it was painful. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Michael, it has been an absolute pleasure for not only having this incredible conversation, but giving us a glimpse into a world that honestly I had never seen before. Um, and I thank you. I thank you for being as open as you are and as skeptical because honest to goodness, it's the open skeptics that are the ones who are leading the charge of awakening and remembering because if we aren't skeptical, we aren't asking big enough questions,
I agree.
right?
100%.
And
100%.
the more questions we ask, the more we learn.
Bingo. Yeah, if I get proved
Yay.
wrong, then and like that's the thing. Like I am skeptical, and I know that if all this was to be inaccurate or modern hoax, that there would be even a bigger story there. of just how ridiculous it was. I mean, at this point, so ridiculous. Like these people deserve acting guilds, not whatever, you know. I mean, they went to town. So yeah, either way, you know, it works, and it's
I think though, that is the biggest fear for most of us that are on this, you know, that leading this charge and helping to restore this awareness is, am I going to get proven wrong? Am I crazy? Am I, you know,
right.
is there, and I know I've gone through that fear so many times, but the miracles that keep happening on the journey along the way keep proving otherwise. And yet we still wait. We still wait for that one person who's going to prove us wrong, right? I mean, for years, I was like, maybe there's something in my brain that isn't wired properly that can give me this information. Like, why? Why can I do this, right? Trust me, we've all been there. We all are second guessing all of the things, but the miracles keep coming. And I mean, yeah, this was a great conversation. I would love to have another conversation with you.
Yeah,
Um,
anytime.
yeah. And again, if you have any questions about anything, and as those downloads start coming, if there's any questions about what's going on or what, if it doesn't make sense or you're just feeling unsure, you know where to find me,
I
honestly.
appreciate that very much.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming at certain times where you're like, okay, so I just feel like a whole bunch of beings just came into my room and they're doing this and doing that. Call me.
Yeah, asking for help's part of the process.
100%.
It's a team effort on this one. This ain't, excuse me, this isn't, it isn't one person's job at all. Like this is truly a collective effort of so many of us, you know. It's going to take a
Yeah.
lot to get there. I seen this with the Nazca mummies down there in Peru, you know, those guys that, I mean, they fought neck and neck with science for, you know, what, it's been since 2017, but that's inspirational, you know. They've made, you know, progress, and that's good to see. It's hard to do when you're sitting there being told that everything you're doing is wrong, you know?
100%. We know, right? And it's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's, we just keep going. We
Yep.
just keep going. Thank you
Thank
so,
you.
so much.
Yeah,
And yeah. Oh, let me know how you're doing, please.
I will do. Keep in
Okay.
touch. Have a good
Thanks,
day.
Michael. You too. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to learn more, head on over to michellevickers.com. Join our mailing list to receive new episodes right to your inbox or apply to be a guest on the show. If this episode made you think of someone while you were listening, forward the link onto that person with a little note about why it made you think of them, because the greatest gift you can give another human is to see the beauty and purity of who they truly are. Until next time, stay curious.